Live from Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York, I'm Shanali Bassik.
And I'm Tim Stennebeck. Welcome to Bloomberg Crypto, a look at the people, transactions, and technology shaping the world of decentralized finance. Geopolitical tensions are soaring as the U.S. says there are indications that Iran is preparing to imminently launch a ballistic missile strike against Israel.
And the conflict will certainly come up at tonight's U.S. vice presidential debate. Each candidate's stance on crypto might also be front and center.
That and more ahead over the next half hour. First, though, a snapshot of the market where we're seeing a risk-off day across assets. This after earlier today, the White House said there were indications that Iran is preparing to attack Israel. Stocks and bond yields are lower, oil and gold higher. Bitcoin and other cryptos, well, they are taking a hit. Bitcoin down close to 2% as we speak. You can see the dive just after 9 o'clock this morning, Wall Street time. This is right when the world learned of a possible escalation in the region. Here at Bloomberg TV, we'll continue to bring you the latest developments coming out of the region. Let's zoom out, though, and check out what's happened over the last 7 days as Bitcoin has fallen 2.6%. We're seeing today's decline extend its decline over the last 7 days, thanks to today's move lower. Bitcoin was down as much as 3% earlier in the session. It's bounced off of some of those declines. But Shanali, as we know by now, these short-term moves in Bitcoin, they do not tell the full story. What do you have your eye on?
Listen, Tim, usually September is a pretty sad story for risk assets, Bitcoin being no exception, but it just had one of its best September gains ever as a global wave of interest rate cuts had spurred a rally. And for reference, Bitcoin had an average decline of 5.9% in September over the past decade, yet you saw it have the best month this year, 8.2% higher, and that recent weakness does not erase those losses. The question becomes how it continues to behave in a new interest rate environment, Tim.
Yeah, certainly take today's moves with a grain of salt. Bitcoin's rise coinciding, though, with stocks as traders assess the market implications of rate cuts and the presidential election. Last week, BlackRock's head of digital assets told us how he's feeling about the regulatory outlook in Washington.
Bipartisan recognition that there's a need to develop clear regulatory frameworks around this asset class and this technology. And so I think that is a really encouraging trend. So we're optimistic that some way or other we will see a constructive framework that allows the U.S. to lead in digital assets and to harness the potential of this technology.
We're going to now discuss moves in the crypto world today with Bloomberg's Mike Regan, who, of course, watches all assets very closely. But put this into perspective. Is Bitcoin a haven bid or not? Because we have seen prior conflict has led to actually increases in Bitcoin. That's certainly not the case today.
You know, it's what its real correlation with the rest of the market is sort of a moving target. I mean, there were times in the past where it did sort of react like a haven asset or an anti-inflation protection asset. These days, the correlations with the U.S. equity market and the tech stocks is very, very strong. So when you see sort of a sell-off in the equities like this that we saw this morning, it's not too surprising that Bitcoin would react in the same direction, and even a little bit more. You know, the so-called beta is a little bit higher, so it might drop a little bit more, rise a little bit more than whatever the equity market's doing. That said, it's no guarantee that it moves in lockstep every day, but the trend over recent months has been that more often than not, it will move with equities.
So, Mike, what's the story that tells about the evolution of how traders think about Bitcoin as an asset, going from a haven to something that is indeed more speculative?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the shifting narrative of the reasons, the rationale for buying and holding Bitcoin. And the other thing is, Bitcoin, while it is correlated with the equity market, it hasn't really been hitting new highs as frequently as the equity market has, especially in recent months. So it is correlated, but again, it's not this lockstep movement. But it does kind of sort of dispel that old-fashioned narrative that this was, a sort of risk-off or at least uncorrelated asset with the rest of the market. That said, the correlations are never reliable. They tend to shift, and there are idiosyncratic reasons within the market itself that could cause Bitcoin to rise or fall. So it's not, once you think you have that correlation pinned down, it tends to surprise you and start to become sort of unconnected to the asset that it was correlated with.
Mike, stick with us. We're also going to bring in politics now because Donald Trump's selection of Senator J.D. Vance as his vice presidential candidate is going to heighten the focus here on a new cryptocurrency framework that benefits platforms like Coinbase, according to Bloomberg Intelligence. But at the same time, Trump's World Liberty Financial decentralized finance project has started to sign up users. even though it remains unclear what the services on the platform will be. Bloomberg's Zeke Fox is the author of Number Go Up. It comes out in paperback today. He joins us here on set. And let's just go to the latest in the Trump world and crypto. At the end of the day, it's interesting because from what I understand from Bloomberg's reporting, from your own reporting, is even though he doesn't have management over World Liberty Financial, he gets some sort of financial claim to it. What do we know about the signups and what he gets at the end of the day?
Yeah, so it's clear he's getting something, but there's a disclaimer that they're not saying exactly what it is. And they're not telling us what World Liberty is. I mean, it's very crypto, right? It's like, hey, I got this project. It's really cool. Somebody famous is talking about it. Now buy my token. And that's all they're going to tell us for now.
How has the crypto community reacted to this? Because I was scrolling through some tweets, thanks to some that Sonali sent me over the last day. It doesn't seem like there's uniform support of this project from established players in the crypto industry.
No, it's pretty hard to find established guys who are for World Liberty. There have been a lot of people saying this looks like a cash grab. They loved Trump when he was saying, I'm going to change policy to support your tokens. Now that he's got his own token, they're like, ooh, no, not so fast.
To be fair, also, World Liberty and the Republican Party stance on crypto are not quite the same thing. But I am curious, Mike, as to how a new presidential administration, whether it be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, would change the game here for the crypto community.
Well, that is the million-dollar question. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump has made very sort of friendly remarks towards crypto, promising to appoint regulators that are in favor of the asset class. It's not 100% clear that he'll be able to do that without the support of Congress. Now, the most sort of sweeping bill that has gone through Congress, it's known as FIT 21, which sort of divide regulation of crypto between the SEC in some cases and the CFTC in other cases. It did pass the House with bipartisan support. A surprising number of Democrats voted for it, but it's just dead in the water in the Senate. So there is, a lot of reports and speculation that J.D. Vance might be able to sort of help push that along should Trump and Vance get to the White House. The big elephant in the room, obviously, is all this campaign funding. I mean, about half of all the campaign money being raised by companies is from the crypto industry. So it's a very asymmetrical thing right now. Not a lot of politicians are anti-crypto these days, and the really vocal pro-crypto ones are benefiting from this funding. But it's not quite enough to really get this crypto-friendly legislation through the Senate.
It's interesting. There's a whole lot of frustration in the crypto community. You look at Nick Carter, of course, a very prominent voice, or loud voice, rather, in the crypto community, who said that he expressed concern about World Liberty Financial and Politico, the New York Times, MSNBC, The Independent, New Republic, among others. He said he couldn't have done more short of handcuffing himself to Mar-a-Lago. But of course, this was in response also to somebody else on the X platform criticizing really his approach to the Biden administration. Let's talk about the next generation of regulation. Congressman here, I think what's interesting is under the Biden administration, a very vocal critic of crypto has been Sherrod Brown. And he's facing opposition in Ohio, where there is another candidate here proposing a bill for paying taxes with crypto. Is that even reasonable? At this point, are people just saying things for the vote?
I mean, it's wild to hear. I feel like these politicians, the ones who are pro-crypto, they're still living in like the last cycle. Like, we're going to use crypto to pay our taxes, or like blockchain is going to revolutionize the supply chain. It's like even crypto people have totally moved on, and they're still stuck on the old talking points. And it's bizarre to me. I mean, don't these politicians remember, like a couple years ago, this guy with curly hair came down to D.C. bearing campaign contributions and telling them that crypto needed lighter regulation?
Clear who you're talking about.
Yeah. And he was running a giant scam. And if anything, they should be criticizing the SEC for not stopping that, rather than saying the SEC should go looser on crypto.
So, Mike, come on in here, because I'm wondering if this moves the needle at all for constituents here. You talk about the money coming from the crypto industry in politics right now. Is there any indication that there is a candidate leading when it comes to crypto? Coinbase and Morning Consult out with this poll yesterday that shows basically Harris and Trump are neck and neck when it comes to people who have crypto.
Yeah, I think as an issue that actually causes people to vote one way or the other, it's almost a wash, and that poll sort of suggests that it's evenly divided. But you can't sort of ignore all the money at play. You know, if the crypto lobby, Fairshake, the big crypto super PAC, wants to point some money, especially in those down ballot races, at a candidate that they don't like and run negative ads against them, or support a candidate they do like, they won't even necessarily, the ads won't even necessarily mention crypto, but they will be laser focused on these down ballot candidates in congressional races that they don't want to win, or support the ones that they do want to win. So you could watch an ad and not even realize this is a crypto PAC ad. It's just attacking the guy or the woman that they don't like.
You know, it's interesting. To the note, your book comes out today. What a timely moment when you have a vice presidential debate. And how will J.D. Vance approach crypto? Is he going to show up, you think, with that kind of pro-crypto tone, even tonight, to win voters at a time where Kamala Harris, yes, she's been kind of less hostile towards crypto than the existing Biden administration, but unclear in terms of how hard she might be on it?
I think that even J.D. Vance, who's said pro-crypto things in the past, knows that this isn't like something that the mainstream audience really knows a lot about or cares a lot about. I'd be pretty surprised to hear him talk about crypto. It's more like something where you show up at the crypto conference, you give a speech about how great it is, and you collect some donations.
What about walls?
Oh man, that would be a real curveball.
Is the, you know, America's dad, as he likes to be, you know, known, is he going to talk about crypto? Does he have anything to say about crypto in your view?
I mean, we haven't seen any comments from him about crypto in the past, and even what Kamala Harris has said, I think has been pretty non-committal. She said things like blockchain is the future, or we need to have innovation here. These are things that, like, Gary Gensler, who's the top enemy of crypto in the crypto industry's eyes, things he could say too.
Well, Mike, come on in here. What are you keeping an eye on tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Zeke. It would be kind of surprising if crypto came up as a topic on its own in this debate. I mean, there's, you know, from the Middle East to immigration, inflation, there's so many other topics that the moderators will want to get into. And I doubt that they will get into crypto itself. I mean, you know, if J.D. Vance really wanted to make a point, maybe he could sort of shoehorn it in as a topic to the answer to another question. That said, though, these debates are important for the price of crypto. If you look at the last debate, Bitcoin really took a dive, at least a short-term dive, when it appeared that Kamala Harris won that debate. And, you know, whenever Trump has sort of a moment where his probability seems to go up, after the first assassination attempt, when there was a lot of sympathy towards him, Bitcoin did rise. So there is the potential for some market moves on the debate, regardless of whether the topic even comes up or not.
Yeah, good reminder that this is traded 24/7, so it's a constant reminder of how the community is reacting to it. Zeke, I want to end with you where we began, and that's with World Liberty Financial, because you have been researching and doing a lot of reporting about who the people behind it are, apart from President Trump, this so-called dirtbag of the internet, as you have described him, as he's been known.
As he described himself.
As he described himself. Thank you, Shonali. Who is this guy?
Yeah, so his name is Chase Hero, and he was there at Mar-a-Lago when Trump did a Twitter Spaces to announce World Liberty. He's got a crazy resume, went to prison for marijuana. He sold colon cleanses and a $149 a month get-rich-quick scheme. And now he's sitting with Trump selling his new crypto project. And I'm told he's kind of the main man behind this project.
You know, Zeke, something interesting about your book is it has gotten the attention of pro-crypto kind of advocates here, crypto advocates, as well as anti-crypto folks across the country. Tell us a little bit more about what to expect. If you pick up one of your books in paperback, of course.
Yeah, so the book's out today in paperback. It's got a new chapter about Sam Bankman-Fried's trial and crypto's comeback. The title Number Go Up conveniently works either way. If crypto's down, it's sarcastic, and if it's up, that's what I meant was going to happen all along.
Well, it certainly has gone, maybe not today, but in general, it has been higher since you've published.
Big thank you to Zeke Fox. Check out the paperback edition of Number Go Up. It's out today. Also, Bloomberg's Mike Regan. A reminder that you can watch the CBS U.S. vice presidential debate right here on Bloomberg TV. Our coverage starts at 8 p.m. New York time. Well, coming up, Denelle Dixon from the Stellar Development Foundation stops by to talk about her company's work with the UN to bring aid to refugees. This is Bloomberg. The UN's refugee agency is using the Stellar network to distribute monetary aid in stablecoins to refugees. For more, let's bring in Denelle Dixon, CEO of Stellar. Denelle, good to see you this afternoon. Is this the ultimate promise of crypto? Is this why it exists?
This is why it exists. And it's so interesting listening to your last segment, because what this technology does is actually solve a tremendous number of problems. And what we're doing with the UNHCR and have been doing for the last year and a half now is really demonstrating that this technology has a purpose. And the aid is, it gets into the hands of the refugees within 3 minutes of downloading the wallet and receiving the text message from the UN. And then they can cash it out at a MoneyGram location. They can hold it. They can put it in their bank account. It actually really has solved a tremendous amount of problems just in terms of aid distribution. I just heard the head of the UNHCR talk yesterday about the fact that it saved them $12 million to be able to use these digital components of their work. So it's a pretty great piece of technology that can be leveraged.
I think an important part of this daisy chain here, from going from crypto to MoneyGram to account, is how the crypto is used in the form of stablecoins in particular. And if you think about the way that the crypto industry is transforming, at what juncture is the stablecoin industry becoming more important than the regular way Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto community as we had previously talked about it?
Well, you got to remember that the rails are the technology are the rails. And so those tokens in every one of these pieces of, in every one of these chains are the secret sauce, sort of the way that keeps everything tight, that makes sure it ensures that there's security and stability in the network. But in terms of really transacting, we've always believed that tokenization of fiat and just tokenization of real world assets is the way to sort of make this all work together. You really have to interoperate with the traditional financial infrastructure to be able to reach people where their needs are. And so this is a great example of it. And you're right, it demonstrates that there's like such growth and maturity in the industry. And sometimes we don't always hear about that part.
Denelle, help us understand the last mile of delivery for these refugees here. What happens when they do get the monies in stablecoin? What is the ultimate way that they're able to use that in a local currency?
Yeah, I mean, the perfect world someday is that they'll just be able to leverage these stable coins down at merchants. And this is something that actually the Ukraine is working on itself, which it's called the Transparent Network, and they're working on being able to deliver it that way. But right now, what happens is the refugee receives a text message from the UNHCR, says you're eligible to receive aid. That refugee then downloads the wallet that is recommended by the UNHCR. And that once they put in their KYC information, so their know your customer, so all their details, they then have the aid right there in their wallet. They can make some choices at that point. They can say, okay, I'm just going to hold this right now because I don't want to go out. It's not safe for me to go out, or it's not the right time. Or they can actually go down to a MoneyGram location and they cash out into the local currency. They can cash out into local currency no matter where they are. So if they're in Poland, for example, versus Ukraine, they can still cash out there into Polish currency. Or they can, with MoneyGram, that there's an easy way for them to just put it directly into their bank account if they have a bank account. So it's converting right now into the local fiat, either in the bank account or into true fiat at MoneyGram. And then the refugee gets to be able to leverage it for whatever they choose. But there are many wallets out there that allow end users to be able to pay bills, to be able to make merchant payments to some locations. So there's a lot of it's not just promise, there's opportunity here for this to progress further and further.
Denelle, to the extent that you can expand your efforts more with the help of government organizations, the government itself, what would you need to see from the U.S. government? Have you been in talks to expand these efforts?
Yeah, so much of what you guys spoke about in just the last segment in terms of thinking about what legislation domestically is important. Obviously, the FIT Act, which was mentioned before, is something that's really important. Creating just real stability with respect to this technology. You know, the United States has always been at the forefront of technology and really had this hands-off approach to regulation, regulating outcomes instead of the tech stack. And over the last few years, we've seen, unfortunately, regulation that's focused on regulating the tech stack, maybe through the SEC and through forms of an investigation. And that's not what we need to see. We need to see real stability, meaning that we need to create stablecoin legislation, which is already there, just needs to be passed and gone through. Stablecoin legislation that says this is actually a really great way for us to be able to leverage the US dollar in the United States as well as other regions. So we need to see leadership here in the United States.
Denelle, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. That is Denelle Dixon. She is the CEO of Stellar Development Foundation. And next, we're going to hear from CFTC Chair Rostin Benham as he sees a serious need for U.S. regulation for digital assets. Stick with us for that. This is Bloomberg.
There is a giant gap in regulation. There are a lot of customers who are either uninformed or don't really know the associated risks with crypto. And we have to put the guardrails around this industry. And those guardrails are the same guardrails that we put around equity markets, derivatives markets, fixed income markets, et cetera.
No different.
But if we think broadly from a principles-based standpoint, the market structure components that have been put in place for decades and have worked quite well for US markets are the same ones we need to think about for digital assets.
CZ Changpeng Zhao pledging to keep investing in the blockchain sector in his first comments since his release from U.S. custody. The co-founder of Binance was sentenced to 4 months in custody over failures that let criminals and terror groups use the exchange. Zhao said that his new endeavor, called Giggle Academy, is a nonprofit online education platform.
This is somebody that the crypto community has been watching closely because, of course, he's been able to keep an economic interest by and large when it comes to Binance. And so, of course, he's not involved in the management of Binance anymore. People are watching very closely how Binance is expanding across the globe, but he's, as you say, off to his next new thing.
Look, apples and oranges when we're talking about CZ and SBF, but worth comparing them and comparing different outcomes that they had, given a settlement, given time served, and given what they're going to be able to work on in the future as a result of that time served.
Absolutely, and the future of the exchanges that they helped expand into such massive, massive players in the world of global crypto. We'll keep an eye on all of it. I've got to say, going back to another thing we've been discussing for the last couple of weeks is the regulation regime in the United States. What we haven't talked about, aside from Congress, is the regulators themselves, the CFTC trying to get greater control over these exchanges. That's something I have my eye on in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and look, what happens in November, a lot will depend on the outcome of the presidential election.
And that does it for Bloomberg Crypto. Same time, same place, next week. Don't miss it. This is Bloomberg.